The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. So.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
I am concerned. I also have seen real significant safety hazards when people, in fact, try to jump multiple cars and barely cutting back in before oncoming traffic. So I'm just a little bit concerned about that. And if this bill was a little more specific in the limitations in being able to how many cars you can jump above the speed limit, I could support it. But at this point, I'm just not comfortable with it. Thank you.
Good gentlemen, before you sit down, so is that debate against the bill? I'm to understand that's debate against the bill? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Further debate on the motion. Hearing none, with the gentleman from 7 care to close debate.
Yeah, and just to further answer the gentleman's question, page 2, line 11 specifically states one or more vehicles. And we tried to, this law has been in place for quite a while now, and we're just improving on it, would be my definition of it. It's not intended for interstates, it's not intended for city limits. It's speed limits from 55 to posted speed limits 55 up to 65. So again, the law has been in place. It's been working. In my opinion, this is just an improvement on the current law. So,
thank you, gentlemen. Debate is closed. Question is to House Bill 205 pass the House. Clerk will unlock the sheet. Members cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will lock the machine, record the roll. 64 ayes, 3 nays, 3 absent, excused. Majority haven't voted in favor of House Bill 205. House Bill 205 is passed House. Correction title.
No correction of title.
39, the title is approved. Bill will be transferred to Senate. The House will now have before House Bill 206. Good gentleman from 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request unanimous consent to stop further reading of House Bill 206.
Unanimous consent has been requested. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman has the floor to present the motion.
Mr. Speaker, this House Bill 206 moves the Emergency Medical Services Bureau from the Department of Health and Welfare to the Idaho Military Division. The Idaho Military Division already coordinates emergency management through the Office of Emergency Management. They also have a better fit as they also deal with emergency issues. And as a byline, EMS staff, half of the staffing for the EMS Bureau already works in emergency capacity. They do rural EMS dispatching. They do dispatching for the Office of Emergency Management, hazmat, and mass casualty incidents. What's a mass casualty? That's when a bus has a problem on Highway 55 with numerous injuries. So our state EMS dispatchers step in and help out with that. All of the existing EMS programs.
All right, folks, you're watching action happening on the House floor right now. Good morning, everybody. Let's go check in on the Senate. I believe Senator Brian Lenny is presenting Senate Bill 1052. We're just going to be taking a look at a bunch of stuff today, but it's always good to see some of what I think I saw a comment, some no duh bills when it came to that last one on the passing lane. This is Senate Bill 1052 that they're voting on right now. Let's listen to the vote.
Lind, Nichols, Okonowitz, Robbie, Ricks, Ruckty, Samara, Shippey, Taylor, Taves, Van Orden, Boardingle King, Wintro, Woodward, Cito, Seiderveld.
The vote count shows 35 in favor with none against, a majority having voted in the affirmative. Senate Bill 1052 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to the title is approved and the bill will be transmitted to the House. Senate will now have before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1070. The Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1070 by Education Committee, an act relating to education to
Mr.
establish.
President,
Senator Cook.
I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of Senate Bill 1070 be dispensed with and that the journal show that it has been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Without objection, Senator, you're recognized to begin the debate.
Thank you, President. Senators, currently the schools hand out Chromebooks and laptops that have access to the internet. Many parents feel like because it's coming from the school districts that obviously it must be safe. But I want to be very clear. There is no way that these internet-based devices can be 100% safe. I'm not just talking pornography, but I'm talking human and sex trafficking, stalking, bullying, the whole 9 yards. Idaho school children have been victims to internet-based predation currently already on these technology that is administered by our schools. There are school-owned devices, Chromebooks, that were handed out to our children that are currently in police evidence rooms. Currently, there is no state requirement that says that they must warn or educate parents about these devices. This bill simply requires that school districts make available a free online education for parents in the following 4 areas. First, the potential dangers. Second, the nature of online threats. Third, the ways that children participate online that is a threat or risk to their safety. And fourth, best practices for parents to keep children safe. The State Department of Education has already secured a program that warns and educates parents based on those 4 criteria at no cost to the state of Idaho. This program has already been used and handed out by several different school districts. And so with that, Senators, debate is open.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Zito.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm going to stand in debate against this bill. If these tools that we are sending home with our children are that dangerous and that uncontrollable once they're off the school property, then we should not send them home. And I feel like if I vote in favor of this bill, I'm saying it's okay to send the children home with a dangerous tool. Now, I don't think we would send them home with a chop saw from the shop class or a power tool from the auto mechanics class. So I'm having a hard time to justify in my mind how, if there's that much danger in this, we should send that home with them as well. Now, my grandson goes to school in Colorado and he takes his Chromebook home. Even at home, he cannot access dangerous material on his Chromebook at home. My other issue is that if we are going to have a video produced that we are going to ask our parents to watch, I feel like it would be in the best interest of our citizens and our parents to see if we could possibly get the Attorney General's office to produce something like that. Be done by the state, by the person who defends and protects our people and our state. And so those are my reasons why I cannot support this piece of legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
All right. The bill, Senate Bill 1070, will be continued to be debated here. We'll pay attention to that, and hopefully we'll see the vote. Unfortunately, as you know, the Senate doesn't have a tally board like they do in the House, so we will have to pay attention and listen and see what the vote is. But we have a good special guest joining us today. To set it up real quick, as you know, nationally across the country, the big thing right now is Elon Musk, Doge, finding the waste, cutting the waste, looking for the fat, and completely overhauling our departments in the entire country in order to find efficiency, right? The Department of Government Efficiency, and it's been really wild to watch that. And of course, here that the word Doge, the whole concept behind it, has been used in various formats throughout the state, and people thinking that they're doing Doge here and Doge there, and in some cases they are, and we're really excited to see people jump aboard that and really take it to task. But our guest this morning has an article up at Breitbart. If we just bring that article up here, has an article up at Breitbart.com. It's from Cliff Maloney saying, "We need a Doge in every state." Cliff Maloney joins us now. He's CEO of Citizens Alliance, which obviously is a partner with me here in Citizens Alliance of Idaho. He's also the founder of the PA Chase and taking on this challenge to the states on this Doge thing. Good morning, Cliff. Thanks for joining us. Walk us through your article. Let me know what your challenge is here.
Yeah, well, Matt, as always, appreciate you guys having me. Look, I think I've always been focused on state level policy. I think for a while, it was tough to get people excited about state level policy because most people are watching the news and they're watching even alternative media, and everybody's talking about, aside from Idaho Signal, everybody's talking about Congress, right? Everybody's talking about the White House. And so it becomes, you kind of get inundated with these federal races. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's your state house and your state Senate and your local, county offices and city offices that are really going to decide if you're a free man or not. And so I've always been on this battle for us to focus more locally. And, obviously 2020 changed a lot of things. Number one, COVID. A lot of people said, holy heck, the only good states to live in were the ones that had strong conservative states pushing back on the corrupt federal government and all the overreach, the masks, the shutdowns, the lockdowns. And then obviously certifying the election in 2020. People said, wait, who certifies the election? It's the states that actually do that. So people got more interested. Well, I see Doge as this opportunity for people to be paying attention federally, but we need to have a trickle down to the states on this, right? And obviously the Overton window of what is an allowable opinion or what's an allowable action by a politician, I just see no better opportunity now than for politicians at the state level to take what has happened at the federal level and what is happening and try to apply that to find the waste, fraud, and abuse, to abolish some of these departments, and my gosh, maybe even cut spending when it comes to real dollars year over year. I just think the appetite's there, and we've got the mandate from the people through the election. Matt, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, here we go. You got me now? Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The sentiment is with it. The people are with this whole idea. And so, but can you square this up for me a little bit? Because the federal government is generally dealing with billions and billions of dollars, sometimes trillions of dollars, obviously, whereas the states can be anywhere in the billions to sometimes just under $1 billion or whatever it is, depending upon how much, some states do run lean, even though there's still some fat. So when I think about a state like Idaho, where we're not really talking about, hundreds of billions of dollars, even just identifying things that are in the $100,000 or $1 million, like that's enough that can have a huge impact on the people, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're talking about a family income in a household of $60,000 to $80,000, if you can find something that's $100,000 to cut, that's why I think a lot of this stuff with Elon has been pretty genius, because even if it's $1 million that goes to Siberia to test out whether monkeys get high off cocaine or some crazy stuff, it's $1 million, right? And so to any blue collar working class family, that is like, why I would want that money? Why are we giving my money and American money to these just crazy things? So yeah, I think the smaller the stuff is, sometimes it's just about finding anything, because we've gotten to a point where, once again, states have followed the federal lead, and the federal lead is just that this is just a piggy bank, and the money is gravy train to all the lobbyists, all their friends. And I think we need a change in kind of not just perspective, but a change in our attitude. And look, as a diehard liberty lover, I'm probably as happy as I'm ever going to be with what I see as an opportunity for us to actually make change. Will it happen? I sure hope it does. But I think the swamp is powerful, and it's going to be a battle of Doge versus the swamp, and who can succeed at that. But right now is an opportunity for anybody at the state level to be able to easily capture the attention of their constituents, not just in their district, but their entire state, to say, listen, we need to replicate what they're doing in DC, what Elon is doing. And a lot of conservatives, Matt, you know this, we've been screaming about some of these programs for years. But now we have something that we can say, hey, listen, this is enough. And it's time to roll some of this back. Let's cut some of the income tax. Let's cut the spending. We don't need all these departments. Let's pull a Javier Milei and a flare of these things off the map. And I just think, there's no better time for us to try to do this than right now. But it's about actually leading on this and doing the Doge at the state level.
Yeah, I love it. I love hearing all of this. Some of the things that are going on in Idaho right now in terms of, tax, like the governor came out and said that he wanted to cut $100 million in taxes, like give $100 million tax cut to the people. And then leadership came over, the legislative leadership came over the board and said, no, actually, we want to do more like 400,000 or 400 million in tax cut relief to the people. So when you see how important it is for the governor to lead on these issues, because he's the one with the biggest bullhorn, right? Like you look in other states, like you see, Ron DeSantis in Florida just really pounding away at like wanting to eliminate property tax. They already don't even have an income tax, right? So, I mean, when you see people at that level, the governor level, leading like that, it really helps the legislature move that stuff forward. So there are still some issues in some of these states, including Idaho, where I think we need better leadership with a Doge mindset at that top dog spot.
Yeah, well, I'll take a little bit of credit. After I wrote that piece in Breitbart, Ron DeSantis, I think 48 hours later, announced they're officially launching Doge in Florida, which is great. So I'm very excited about that. But I think that, look, my hope in writing this piece was that you have certain states that step up and really drive it. Because, look, a lot of these red states, they're looking and they're kind of waiting on pressure points, right? Look at Texas. I guarantee you, let me make this prediction right here on Idaho Signal. Now that Ron DeSantis is pushing for property tax being abolished in the state of Florida, Greg Abbott will finally step up and all of a sudden have this great idea to do property tax reform in Texas. Something that Don Huffines, one of our favorite liberty legislators in Texas, has been screaming about for a decade. Now that DeSantis has done it, it's going to force these red states to still say, oh, of course, but you have to have somebody lead. It was just like COVID. If it wasn't for Florida, if it wasn't for South Dakota, we would all be in trouble. No offense to Idaho, but it wasn't Idaho that led during COVID, but they at least followed once these other states moved.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the DOJ, principle right now is which states are going to step up, which red states are going to lead by example, and then kind of force the others along. As we say, Matt, nothing moves in politics unless it's pushed. Well, sometimes you need a chainsaw, and we're seeing that right now with Elon Musk.
That's right. And as a state that prides itself in its timber industry, chainsaws are they're just sitting around waiting to be used. So we need to get aboard. Awesome, Cliff. All right. Well, where can people follow you? What's your final call to action for folks? Give us the details.
Yeah, you can follow me on X at Maloney. I encourage everybody, if you're in Pennsylvania specifically, that's one of our big programs at phase.com. If you're in Idaho, obviously get involved with our Citizens Alliance group that Matt leads. But really, it's just, run for local office, support local politicians that believe in the cause of liberty. Don't waste your time trying to build parties and trying to build these big federal races. We'll get there. But if you're just getting in, you're new to the game, focus on state legislative races. That's why Idaho Signal is great. Matt is in the weeds, talking, analyzing, keeping people accountable, putting on pressure to make sure that people know what's happening in Boise. But Matt, appreciate you. Follow me on X, everybody, at Maloney, and let's ride together, as Matt would say.
That's right, brother. We ride together. All right, Cliff, thanks for dropping by. We'll check in with you again soon.
See you now.
All right. All right, folks. Fantastic. Yes. I mean, we got to get serious. If you really want to take chainsaws, you got to get serious. And we're moving in that direction. Sometimes Idaho leads on things, and sometimes they need to catch up. And right now we're playing. I feel like we're playing a little bit of catch up when it comes to the DOJ thing. But just keep that pressure on with your legislators. All right. Still, there's a lot of activity happening in the House and the Senate. We're going to take a quick break. We'll recap what's going on there, and we'll be right back. See you then.
That's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
Woohoo! We ride together. That's right, everybody. We ride together. Okay. A bill that just passed in the House unanimously was House Bill 141. I believe this is a good bill. This would add to existing law that all Title IX compliance should be put into the hands of the president of each institution rather than where it was before, which apparently was not a good spot because we had all these issues with like men and women's sports and not protecting women's sports and that sort of thing. So wherever you are in the position of Title IX, notwithstanding, everybody who was in the House today voted for it. So we'll moving on. Anywho, let's get rolling here. I believe we had where's my list? Where's my list? You know, guys, I told you this yesterday. When we're scrambling for this show, it's always a scramble. So we'll get to it. The Senate and the House are still going strong. We do have a call out to Senator Christy Zitto. So if the Senate adjourns while we're on the air, we'll have Senator Christy Zitto in house. So do stick around for that. I hear she has some Second Amendment bills. One maybe at least or two. I'm not sure. That's why we're having her on, to find out more about that. So stay tuned for that. I believe Brian Allman will join us in a little while, perhaps. But in the meantime, this morning in the House State Affairs Committee, there was a lot of stuff going on. We want to get to the absentee ballot bill that Joe Alfieri, the representative out of Coeur d'Alene District 4, presented. And this is a bill that he has been trying to get through for a number of years now, because all election experts say that that if there is going to be how would you put it? That of the vulnerabilities in the election integrity system within the elections, the biggest vulnerability is in mail-in ballots, because you're sending actual ballots out through the mail. And it can lose its chain of custody, because you don't know what happens once the election office, issues those ballots out. They could go on a journey of whatever sorts until they come back to the office. And there's so many different things, so many different areas for fraud to happen, that it's universally recognized as that being the most area of vulnerability. So in that spirit, the less of those ballots that you can send out, the better for our elections. And I mean, we've been talking about this for years, the importance of our elections. It's paramount. I mean, if we can't trust our election system, then you've seen what happens. We have division. We have all sorts of strife. So we need to be secure, and we need to make sure that as a government that we elect, this representative government, that they are taking care of these issues. So Representative Joe Alfieri was in the House State Affairs Committee with another bill to try and shore up the absentee ballot process. So let's listen a little bit to his opening remarks.
Legislation before you regards the use of absentee ballots, and there are two essential parts to this legislation. The first one defining the qualifications for applying for an absentee ballot. The second part detailing how absentee ballots might be distributed. And I want to jump to the second part first, because that's easier to cover, and then we'll come back and go through the one that will no doubt bring lots of testimony. If you'll go to page 1, line 34. Blank application to request an absentee ballot shall be sent to any qualified elector upon the elector's request and may be made available online. No government official or other entity shall physically or electronically send an absentee ballot application directly to any elector except upon the direct request of the elector. This is an issue that I know our county clerks have been struggling with, where there have been third-party groups sending out absentee ballot applications pre-filled out to electors, and people are confused about whether this has come from the state saying, I didn't apply for an absentee ballot, why do I have this in the mail, things of that nature. So the clerks have struggled with this.
That's a great representative went on for a while here to fully explain the bill, which is great. But that was a great point to listen to. That not only are we talking about the ballots that are going out, but even the process prior, where people are sending you pre-filled request forms that all you have to do is then send to the office. So like enticing more and more people to get onto what is the most least secure form of voting, right? So why would you do that? Why would you encourage more people, able-bodied people that normally show up on election day? Why would you encourage more of them to request an absentee ballot, right? Especially in a state where we have early voting, where you can show up to a poll in larger counties, or there might be multiple early voting polls set up, or within a county that has it at their election office, a couple of weeks worth of early voting. So this is a big issue. So then he goes on to say who's limited to requesting these absentee ballots if this bill should pass. And it's obviously the elderly and infirmed folks, military that are out of town, folks who work in industries where, like doctors and firefighters, where they may be called out for a particular purpose and can't vote that day. There's a if you're over 65, he even added that wasn't in there last year. So there are certain bills here, or certain areas in this bill that would have limited it, right? Well, there was all sorts of pushback, of course, you would see from the normal folks on the Democrat side, but there was some interesting exchanges here between Representative Judy Boyle and the good representative here, and we want to take a listen to some of these other arguments that were raised today, because I'm going to tell you right now, folks, I'm not going to bury the lead. This bill failed. It failed again. It failed on a tie vote, 7-7. It failed. And here were some of the arguments being made.
Representative, I do have a question, and maybe I've missed it in your bill. Yeah. Is there an exception if we have another issue like we did in 2020 where all the polls are closed?
Representative Alfieri.
Madam Chair, Representative Boyle, no, I don't have that addressed here.
So, Madam Chairman, just a statement. Okay. Then if that occurred, the legislature would have to come back into a special session to change that. Otherwise, people wouldn't be voting.
I don't know if you don't need to comment on that. That's not your bill. So Representative Crane, 13, did you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to speak to a couple of the motions, and hopefully I'll address Representative Boyle's question. I'm not going to support substitute motion. I'm going to support the original motion. I think that where you're headed, Representative, is a good place. We've had this in place before when we did not have the option for citizens to vote early. We now have the option for citizens to vote early, and we're just going back to what was in place. With respect to Representative Boyle's question, never should have been ever. The governor never should have made the decision to make everything absentee. And we have taken steps to ensure that that does not happen again, that he essentially overrode election law, election statute that was in place under an emergency condition. And so I see this as, again, another way to ensure that right and make sure that the governor does not do that. That was concerning to me that happened. So I'm going to support the original motion to send to the floor if it do pass.
Representative Barbieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, am going to support the original motion. I think election integrity is essential. And I understand that, we don't have a problem here. But the easiest way to take an election down would be absentee balloting because of the chain of custody. And I think it's important that we balance the potential for fraud against the right to vote and the necessity of making sure that the integrity of the election is as closely monitored as possible. I appreciate the safeguards that the Secretary has put in place. I think it's important the clerks have done that. I think it's very important the training, and it's absolutely essential. But the exceptions here to allow absentee voting are wide and bright, and I think it's important that we at least put on the books here our concerns to make sure that Idaho's elections stay secure.
Exactly right, folks. He is exactly right. You know, during this hearing this morning, I kept hearing this phrase that, like, oh, we should trust the voters, trust the voters, trust the voters. And it seems to coming out of the same mouths of the people who say we can't trust parents when it comes to their education. Oh, what if we can't trust parents? We can't. What if there's bad parents out there? Well, what if there's bad voters out there? What if there's bad people with bad intentions to manipulate the system? You know, there was also a thing that said that there was folks saying that, well, this doesn't happen in Idaho. Well, you know, neither does widespread mass murder happen in Idaho, but we have laws against it, right? We have laws against widespread mass murder. We have laws against murder in general. All right. Representative Joe Alfieri had a moment where he used the analogy of, you know, Idaho does have a low crime rate, but that doesn't mean we don't have locks on our doors or that we don't have a police force, right? So this is common sense. This is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. This is one of those no-duh bills that we saw debated at the top of the show. There was more to be had on this, and so I'm going to let them take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairman Crane, I do not remember in 2020, after we came back, did we give an exception for if this happens again, for us not having to come back and change absentee voting?
Representative Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Boyle. We have done what we can moving forward if there's a declared emergency by the governor, that there are certain statutes that must not be violated, and I believe voting was one of those that we dealt with.
Go ahead and follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So if all the polling places are closed, do we have something in statute that would address that?
Representative Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Boyle. No, we do not, and we should be called in at that point to deal with it, in my opinion. I think that, and there's, well, without speaking of other pending legislation, if we're in that situation again, I believe the legislative branch should be here helping make decisions.
If I may comment on that, I do think that was a violation of law, and we probably should have pursued it. And I'm not sure that was pursued, but I don't think it will ever happen again.
Yeah, great points there. Great points. Look, if something were to happen where we have to shut down all the polling and do all that, there's a lot of other things that the legislature is going to have to convene about to determine, right? Are we shutting down businesses again? Right? Like, I mean, this isn't just one isolated incident that happens every couple of years where we have to shut down polling places and issue absentee ballots. So some of these arguments were a little disingenuous. I'm a little disappointed in watching this, especially because the vote was a 7-7 tie. And you knew that the Democrats were going to go for it, and you knew the folks that align with the Main Street Caucus were going to be against it. But I'm a little upset at some of the more conservative folks on the dais there that voted to hold this bill. At least send it to the floor to have more debate. Let it die out there. Very frustrating. Very frustrating. We're going to have Representative Joe Alfieri on here, hopefully in the next few days, to kind of go over this and discuss what went down. I was thinking of maybe we could have him on today, but I think he needs some time to investigate what the real reasons were while this thing still can't get over the hump. Man, it takes a long time, folks. It takes a long time. Different strategies, different relationships need to build, and elections need to happen. Elections need to happen. And this is a big issue. So, all right. Well, it looks like we've got Brian Allman on. We got to bring him on. Hey, my man, he's out there in the wilderness today. He's on the beat. He's sniffing. He must be sniffing it out. Hey, Brian, good to see you, man. What was your take on that bill this morning that failed 7-7?
Well, it's getting frustrating seeing those same bills fail over and over and over, isn't it? Especially now that we have an ally of election integrity in the White House, somebody who is very acquainted with what can go wrong with mail-in voting. President Trump has made it part of his agenda to push for same-day, election day only voting, and we still have some Republicans in Idaho who are not getting on board that train. It is frustrating. We'll just have to keep coming back and trying to make that happen. Everybody always has an excuse as to why we need more expansive absentee ballots or mail-in ballots. And it seems like there's an expectation that it's okay to have some risk of fraud as long as we make it easy for everybody. Well, who said voting should be easy? Honestly, it's a very solemn and sacred duty that we have as citizens of a republic, and we should we should take it seriously rather than treating it like just anything else that comes in the junk mail.
Yeah, absolutely. And your point about the Trump coming out and this is part of his platform to just ditch all of this stuff and go to single day paper ballots. I mean, that's if you're pushing back on this now, it's really starting to reveal, who in the legislature is going to be pushing back against even that when we get to that point, if we can get to that point. But yeah, so it's very frustrating. So like I said, we'll talk with Joe Alfieri, representative up in CD4, and figure it out. Okay, some other things that showed up. Another bill that failed to even get printed this morning was an interesting bill. I think it was Representative Kaler presented a bill to completely, almost completely remove all funding and remove all relationships between the state and public television, public broadcasting. Did you get a chance to look at this bill a little bit?
I've seen a little bit of it, and I saw a little bit of the hearing this morning. Obviously, this is something that I think I don't remember if it actually got in the platform, but it's something that the Republican Party has been looking at. At the national level, we see PBS and NPR, and they're very left wing. NPR is an anti-conservative voice right now, and yet it's funded by tax dollars. Here in Idaho, we have Idaho Public Television, which carries some of the NPR and some of the PBS stuff, and so it's something that I think Republicans and conservatives have been looking at. Perhaps this morning's bill needed a little bit of work to get some more people on board.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. The chairman of the committee, although today he was acting as, I think, vice chair while Representative Scott chaired the committee, but nonetheless, he had some advice or some observations for Representative Kaler regarding how this bill was drafted for today. So let's listen to a little bit of that.
Representative Crane, 13.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Kaler. So you can see the committee's struggling with how the funding of this is going to work. So your fiscal note says that it's going to save the taxpayers about $4 million. And I think your testimony said that that's roughly 30%. So is it a $12 million budget that Idaho Public Television has? $4 million of that is provided by the state, and the remaining $8 million is provided by donations and maybe federal dollars. And so is it that $8 million you're thinking is going to be able to keep them up and rolling if they're not doing all this periphery broadcasting?
Representative Kaler.
Madam Chairman, Representative Crane, thank you for the question. I do not have a specific number answer to provide at this time. I would be happy to follow up, though, if this bill does get a second hearing, to give you those exact figures, if I may.
Follow up.
Thank you, Representative Kaler. I'm trying to help you out here. I'm trying to give you a lifeline. You can see you're in trouble in the committee, and you're asking us to go ahead and print this with information you don't have. And that becomes very difficult for a committee to do, even people like myself that might be sympathetic to what you're trying to do. When we don't have the numbers, you kind of need to come prepared, ready to go on those type of things. So I'm sympathetic to what you're trying to do here, but you're asking me to make a decision on something that you don't have any information on. And that makes it very problematic for us as members to take that leap of faith.
That was a comment, so you don't have to respond.
Yeah. So there you have it, Brian. A little bit. I mean, I guess walk us through. I mean, sometimes this happens where a bill's not ready for prime time, right?
Yeah, and I do feel a bit bad for Representative Kaler there. It was brought to him by a constituent who is involved in the political process and wants to see some of these changes, which the aims are definitely good. But this also shows why it's there's more to the process than just writing a good bill and presenting it. You got to talk to the folks on the committee. You got to talk to leadership sometimes. You want to get as much buy-in as you can, so when you step out there, you're not just hung out to dry like that. When they come up with unexpected questions, you want to get those questions before you even get to the print hearing is really what you want to do, because otherwise, it ends up like today.
Yeah, well, that's a little rough around the edges there. So we'll keep trying at it, because again, this is the spirit of Doge, right? If we could just defund something, and especially something that generally speaking can work against our own issues, that's especially at the national level with NPR and such. That's a good thing. So, I do want to mention something. Is it Boise State Radio that does that public survey every year?
I'm not sure. I know someone from Boise State does a survey.
Yeah, and I feel like it's published through the Boise State Public Radio, which is basically like the NPR of Idaho, right, so to speak. So, and their methods, they've always been criticized that their methods of collecting answers on those surveys is they don't poll voters or likely voters. They poll everybody. They poll residents. They just poll, if you're in Idaho, you could be living in Wisconsin and going to school in Idaho and answer this poll, and it be taken as if you have a long-term interest in Idaho, which is usually what voters are. We want to hear from voters on issues, not necessarily your every average Joe who just happens to live here and doesn't vote or doesn't even have an interest in here. So anyway,
well, I think we need to be careful with this idea that just because some people like something doesn't mean government needs to fund it. There's a reasonable purpose for Idaho Public TV. They'll broadcast the legislature. You can go there and watch the House, the session. That's what we use. We watch the Idaho in session, and that seems reasonable for taxpayers to pay so that we can all see what's going on in our own government. But do we need, do we need cartoons to be funded by the government? I think there's an entire private sector out there that will publish cartoons, even educational ones. We don't necessarily need tax dollars supporting that, much less the anti-American nonsense that you sometimes see on things like NPR.
Yeah. All right. Well, yep. Gotcha. All right, Brian. Well, let's everybody know what you're working on this week, what you're paying attention to, and where people can follow you.
Yeah, well, so at Gem State Brian on Twitter, gemstatechronicle.com. Last week there were these 4 bills that were introduced about libel and false advertising in campaigns and rewriting campaign finance, rewriting the lobbyist rules. They're very deep and thick, and I'm going to try and work through those and bring some analysis so that we can know if there's anything good in there or not, or if it's just bad. We'll see.
Yes,
I think we're going to get a mixed bag, honestly.
Yeah. It always seems to go that way. All right. Well, he's out. That's it. Done. Battery died. All right, Brian. Okay, let's take a short break. I don't think we're going to be able to connect with Senator Zito today, but we'll make sure to reschedule with her. We're having some technical difficulties. Maybe something happened down south. I don't know. We just took Brian out. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
The dictionary defines a pledge as something that you give as a sign that you'll keep a promise. As Idahoans, that's what we're looking for in our elected leaders. A sign that they'll keep their word. Talk is cheap, and so are political promises, hidden agendas, and special interests. This is why we created the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge, affirming the values Idahoans have been living by for over 100 years. Inspired by the only 2 documents everyone has agreed to live by. So when an Idaho legislator signs our pledge, inviting voters to publicly hold them accountable, that's what we call political integrity. The pledge restores trust and honesty between voters and their legislators. It means protecting our shared values and ensuring your voice is heard in Boise. And that is priceless. Thank your legislator for having the political courage to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge. And if they haven't, it's time to ask why.
Very good. We are back. Thank you, folks. It's time. It's time to sign. Time to sign the pledge. Time to sign. Even if you go to the front page of citizensallianceidaho.org, you'll see all the folks currently who have signed the pledge. I think we're up to 41. Incredible. 41 out of 105 who have signed the pledge and currently are in good standing. I mean, as the session goes on, we're marking the bills, we're checking them out, we're reading them, and we'll have updated standings at the end of session to find out exactly where everybody stands. Very good. Okay. One of the bills that's actually it's people were laughing at this bill, this chicken bill. Being able to allow everybody in Idaho to have backyard chickens. And it's actually the concept of backyard chickens again has really taken hold. Jeffrey Tucker, do you guys know Jeffrey Tucker? He fantastic commentator, economist, and so forth. He posted something this morning about the whole, this, because with all of the chickens that supposedly have died or had been culled, 160, 170 million chickens across the country been killed off because of avian flu or something like that, has caused the rapid increase in the price of eggs that we're all suffering through right now. But if you had your own chickens, if you had your own backyard chickens, you wouldn't have to worry too much about that. And it's pretty easy to have backyard chickens. And so Senator Tammy Nichols has a bill that passed the Senate. It's now in the House. It's going to be going into the Agricultural Committee, I believe, today. So it's making its journey. It's clucking its way along. And so we're going to be following that. You know who else is following that? Is the fantastic Lily Allman over at In the Know, Idaho. And here we are with the latest masterpiece. Check it out.
Excuse me, are you Lily?
Yeah?
I'm Henry with the Department of Homeowners Association. I'm here to ask you a couple questions about this.
Ah, shoot.
May I come in?
Guess that's fine, if you can make it.
I'm here from the HOA. We've been receiving complaints from numerous sources that are talking about some sort of beasts that you keep on your property. I'm afraid all of this is highly irregular, and unfortunately these chickens, they've just got to go.
Well, I lived through 2020, and I know how fragile the supply chain is, so these chickens are kind of just a way for us to make sure we've got some backup, we've got some eggs, just in case we need some food.
I appreciate that, and we at the HOA appreciate, families and such, but unfortunately we do not care. I'm going to have to ask you to remove all of this immediately, otherwise there will be very serious repercussions.
Well, if I don't have any chickens, the only thing I have left for food security is my garden.
Oh ma'am, those are illegal as well. We can't have that. You've got to have a permit for those nowadays.
Okay. Maybe we can come to some sort of an arrangement. You see, I sell eggs at a pretty good deal.
Is that right?
Right here, farm fresh.
What exactly are you offering these contraband items for?
Oh, this is $20.
For the whole carton?
For the carton alone, and the eggs themselves are $100 apiece.
Well, I don't blame you with inflation and all. No, unfortunately, the whole complex has got to go.
Don't I have rights? I feel like I have rights.
She knows about the rights.
I think this is called common sense.
No. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any sort of piece of legislation, federal or state, that protects the right of any such ownership of such chickens or anything to maintain the quality of your homestead and quality of life. Yet. So unfortunately, I'm sure all of this has just got to go.
I feel like chickens being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and breed chickens shall not be infringed.
If, in fact, if you are not in compliance with these orders and regulations, you'll be receiving many strongly worded cease and desist notions and such.
Sounds good. Thank you. Goodbye. Jeez. Come back with a warrant.
Oh man, that was a masterpiece. Well done. Holy cow. Come back with a warrant. You're damn right. I love it. Holy cow, folks. We're going to get that uploaded ASAP. Get that thing sent to everyone across the state. Well done, Lily and Henry. In the Know, Idaho. Fantastic. We're gonna play that one again. That's one's going to get a repeat for sure, folks. For sure. Be sure you follow Lily and the team over there at In the Know Idaho on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, all over the place. That was a masterpiece. Well done. Well worth the wait. Okay, good. All right, let's quickly get through. Well, this is going to be a major shift here. Let's quickly get through House Bill 270. Yeah, this is quite a departure. Make sure we have a clean cut. Let's have a clean break. And now we're back. Okay, let's do that. All right. House Bill 270 was presented in the House Judiciary and Rules Committee yesterday. And it was interesting because that committee kind of turned into what we see normally in the House State Affairs Committee. The circus arrived to try and defeat this bill. This bill is the one that deals with indecent exposure. Now, we've talked about this for the last few episodes here about the idea that we need to upgrade the indecent exposure laws because we live in a clown world now. And so at this hearing, city council person, who was it? It was Sebastian Griffin, city councilman Sebastian Griffin from Nampa, kind of helped with this legislation because of the experience that he had in his city during the Pride event last year. So let's watch that clip and let him describe what's going on.
As the good representative from 12 had mentioned, this is the modernized code for today's day and age. What we have had before us is a couple instances and issues, and I'd like to share one firsthand experience, not hyperbole, that I had. I was attending an event in one of Nampa's best parks, Lakeview Park, and as I was looking out, I had noticed that there was a woman who was topless, exposing herself to a group of individuals, some of which were children. Shocked by this, I went over and saw a local Nampa police officer and said, "Why hasn't this individual been asked to either number one, cover up, or number two, leave?" And to my surprise, the officer said, "What that person's doing isn't illegal." And I was shocked. I said, "Women can go around the park topless now and expose themselves in public?" And the officer said, "No, women cannot, but men with breast enhancements can." That there is a man and claims to be a man. And that's why I bring the legislation forward. I reached out to Representative Cornelius. He's my representative, and he brought this.
Yeah, very good. Wow. I mean, that's the experience. That's the experience that City Councilman Griffin had there in Nampa last summer. So he brought it to Cornelius, and which we saw him present that bill earlier this week. And or the hearing rather, and but then also in Nampa, of course, Nampa is cut in half in terms of district. Representative Steve Tanner has also jumped aboard to help get this legislation through. Here are some of his words.
For the record, I'm Steve Tanner, representative from District 13, which is basically the other half of Nampa. So the city of Nampa is well represented here today. I just want to add my voice to things that were said by Representative Cornelius and Councilman Griffin, that we are not after any group of people, that we're not targeting a group of people. We're not saying you cannot be of a certain kind of gender, but there's a certain behavior that was very, very offensive in public. And that's what we are doing with this bill. And as Councilman Griffin said, that this is old code that needs to be updated for modern times. This is a complicated issue, something that 10 years ago you would not even thought we needed to even talk about, but here we are. And with that, I'll stand for any questions as well.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Yet here we are. Modern times. Yet here we are. So again, there was a cavalcade of people coming through, some of the normal people that you normally see coming through here, a lot of interestingly presenting characters who just were railing against the fact that this is targeting and marginalizing and erasing, and it's just killing the trans community. This is just going to kill them. We might as well just open up a mass grave and shove everybody in there right now if this bill passes. But all of that lunacy and just like, ridiculous comments aside, which don't make sense at all. There was an exchange between Representative Ehart and somebody representing a community or an organization that took a different approach to this and kind of Very bizarre. What he was saying is that there are internal hormones that sometimes happen in men where they start to develop breasts, and like a condition. It's very bizarre. Watch the clip.
Gynecomastia is a hormonal condition that causes enlarged breasts in males, causing breast tissue to enlarge and resembling female breasts. Gynecomastia is a surprisingly common condition. It affects up to 70% of males during puberty and as many as half of the entire male population between the ages of 50 and 80. That's according to the Mayo Clinic. What I'm trying to tell you is that the gynecomastia can happen naturally throughout the life of a male. It can also be caused by poorly managed hormonal therapies related to low testosterone in younger men, or from abuse of non-prescription or non-therapeutic use of testosterone or anabolic steroids. With that background, I hope you can see that this bill would cast among the widest of nets in our criminal code. Virtually all boys and men are at risk of criminal charges under this bill because if a guy goes shirtless up at Lucky Peak, or while floating the Boise River, or on a run around Lake Lowell, we're at risk of causing offense in someone. The condition is so common and the criminal complaint standard so low that all men would be at risk. Please vote no. Any questions?
Representative Ehart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, so you said this would potentially be a problem for all men criminally. And so since you are more adept at this than I am, if we go to line 10 and we see exposes, here's her genitals, exposes, this is the exposes developed female breasts, including the aorta and nipples, sorry, I'm not pronouncing that well, exposes adult male breasts, including that have been medically or hormonally altered to appear like developing or developed female breasts. So when it says it had been medically or hormonally altered, how would that be a criminal intent for someone who had the condition of which you spoke?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Ehart, I don't think we see anything in this bill about criminal intent.
Your words, though.
Oh, go through the chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, those are the words he used, and that's why the question I asked specifically because he said that it would expose all men to the criminal intent and all of the criminal language he used. I'm going back through his words.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Ehart, the bill itself indicates to me, and I think that's a plain reading, that just by exposing, the act merely of exposing male breasts that are affected by gynecomastia would be enough to satisfy the criminal penalties in this bill.
Follow up?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I am so sorry. What was your name again, sir?
William, that's okay. William Mitchell is my name. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Since you again use the word criminal, according to the law or potential law, wouldn't it have to be medically or hormonally altered in order for it to be criminal? If it wasn't medically or hormonally altered, how would it be criminal?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Ehart, gynecomastia is itself a hormonal condition. So if a male ends up with gynecomastia, it can happen naturally through hormonal imbalance, that's hormonally caused, or it can come from abuse of hormonal regulators like testosterone or anabolic steroids. Those are therefore hormonally caused conditions of gynecomastia.
Mr. Chairman?
One more.
One more question. But meaning that, Mr. Williams, as I read it, hormonally altered, meaning not something within the body, something that they purposely have hormonally altered. So if, I think I better understand what you were trying to say, but I just failed to see the criminal intent there. And you probably have answered what you're able to answer, but anyway, thank you. I think I just failed to see the criminal intent, but thank you.
Yes, we all fail to see that. I mean, this is the type of common sense that is like bananas. Is that what we're talking about? Is that what we've all gone crazy? Is that what we're talking about? A fat guy with his shirt off who happens to have breasts? I mean, it's obviously those are not women's breasts. Man, What does that mean? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. What is that? I'm going to have to put that one on a loop. Unbelievable. Well, folks, it didn't faze anybody. That bill swam out of committee 12-3. I'm pretty sure it was on a partisan basis. I think there's 3 Democrats on that there. And so right out the door. So that's very good. All right, folks. That brings us, hey, you got 5 minutes of extra bonus time today. You're very welcome. I'm feeling it. I hope you're feeling it. We have 24/7. We've got that graphic. There it is. 24/7. You can tune into IdahoSignal.live. Listen to the latest broadcast. If you're out and about, don't want to use all your data watching the show, you can listen to it. IdahoSignal.live. We'll be back here tomorrow for the Thursday show. Enjoy.
Stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.